Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Welcome to day 5 of teaser season for patch 3.25 and the upcoming Settlers of Kalguur expansion. Got a few things to discuss today, although this will be a shorter video than yesterday's, where there was a bit more to go into. So today there were 2 official announcements from Grinding Gear Games on their website, plus there's one player run event that I wanted to flag, and there's also an announcement that was made very informally and very easy to miss over on the PathOfExile subreddit. Let's start with Grinding Gear Games' announcements. The first one is just the reminder that at the end of next week, all of the existing 3.24 supporter packs are going to be taken off sale and replaced with whatever the 3.25 ones are. Anyways, it's not my job to sell those to you, it's Grinding Gear Games', so I thought I'd just flag that that's happening. But if you're interested in the Turtle Hideout, you've got about 8 more days to get it. The second thing is more news about PathOfExile 3.25, and this is going to be some changes to life bars. Now, this here showcases a fight against the Maven, and it demonstrates that there is a big life bar that clogs up the whole top of the screen. This will be a lot clearer, and presumably for a fight like the Maven, it will swap around between the Maven when it's the Maven's turn to fight you, and then swap over to the Nucleus of the Maven when you're fighting that. With a fight like the Uber Elder encounter, it'll probably have both the Shaper and the Elder having their own life bars, although of course I could be wrong there. Now, in addition to another dead totem like the ones we discussed in yesterday's video, there is also something else that's hidden in this video, and that is the little icons that are under the right-hand side of the life bar. You'll see a flame, an icicle, a lightning bolt, an @ symbol, and then something that's a little bit less distinct. I suspect that these are going to be icons for fire damage, cold damage, lightning damage, chaos damage, and physical damage respectively, and that they will show up in certain colors as you apply debuffs to the boss that cause her to be unusually susceptible to those damage types, or alternately, maybe even unusually resistant to those damage types. I could be wrong about this, but that's my understanding of what they're most likely to be. I also mentioned that there's something that's really easy to miss, and that's an announcement Grinding Gear Games made on the PathOfExile subreddit, and this is that the 3.24 experiment of having support for the current League mechanic on the Atlas passive tree will not be repeated in patch 3.25. I don't think that this was necessarily a terrible idea, but I do think it was done really badly in 3.24. In 3.24, Imperial Wraiths felt like it was a mandatory node to take, and additionally there were a couple of other notables, pretty much the whole bottom right cluster, that felt like they were necessary to take as well, so they became a point tax on your Atlas. Additionally, the 3.24 support was in the 4 different corners of the Atlas, which was annoying because it meant that you had to travel to a whole bunch of places you probably weren't interested in. But then at the same time, you also had to travel for the other mandatory nodes on the Atlas, which were Skittering Swarms and also Remarkable Relics. So essentially, whatever strategy you were running, whatever content you were interested in, you pretty much started with Remarkable Relics, Skittering Swarms, and 3 or 4 of the Necropolis clusters, and then that left you only a smaller amount of points in order to pick up everything else. Anyways, in 3.25, there will be no support on the Atlas passive tree for the 3.25 League mechanic. It remains to be seen whether the other Atlas tax nodes remain on the Atlas or not. One thing I will say about the 3.24 experiment with putting Atlas passive tree support for the current League mechanics, I didn't mind things that gave you agency over what dropped, for example, Condensed Souls node, and I also didn't mind things like Prospero's Wager that transformed the way the League mechanic worked in ways that most players didn't want but that were something you could consider taking. The problematic nodes were the ones that just made the mechanic so much stronger that they felt like they were mandatory to take, otherwise you were just running a reduced strength version of the League mechanic. And there's one last piece of news today that relates to a player-run event that's taking place just before this weekend. If you're in the United States and similar time zones, this will be on Friday, or if like me, you're Australian, it's going to be very early in the morning on Saturday. This is going to be a race to 4 Voidstones that's being run in a private league that is based on the hardcore solo self-found rule set, but without the Necropolis mechanics in play. So there'll be no Lantern of Aramor making things more dangerous, but at the same time, there'll be no Necropolis crafting either. This is going to be something that'll be really interesting for the best 300 to 400 players in PathOfExile to compete, show off their skills, and it's also something though that will be useful to people like myself that are nowhere near that sort of level of skill, who can watch this for inspiration for builds that will prove themselves by being very effective at getting to 4 Voidstones early in the league, and as a result, if it can be done in a hardcore solo self-found rule set, it can be done in Trade League as well. So I definitely suggest keeping your eye on this. It'll be great viewing, or it'll be a really exciting event, especially if you're someone that thinks they can complete it within 12 or 13 hours. It'd be very remiss of me not to point out that there will be some skills that are banned in this event. Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction, as well as the classic Detonate Dead, Cremation of Exhuming, and Volatile Dead of Seething are things you're not going to be able to play if you want to win the event. Anyways, that's all we've got for today. I'll put a link to this information down in the description below. May your Valobs have interesting results, and if you do compete, I hope that one of two things happens. Either you succeed, or you provide a hilarious rip clip.